passe super, l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De i semifinale igjen!
Hello everybody and welcome to another Morning Club. Brian Campion here, joined by Chris O'Reilly. Alex is still floating around somewhere in Peru, so for the moment it's just a few Morning Clubs, and we promise to get you a full episode in the next few days, coming weeks, soon. It is summertime. I don't want to promise too much, but we will get back to it soon.
Promise.
But we have a few Morning Clubs coming up for you as always. And this week, or this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the Women's Under-19 Euro, which I'm at in Romania, and a little bit about the Kolstad situation. So Chris, how are you doing?
Not too bad, Brian. Speaking to you from rainy Sweden. We're going down to a beach handball tournament tomorrow, so I don't know how that's going to work out. And you're slugging away in Romania at the Women's Under-19 Euro.
Yeah, it's a really nice tournament and lots of work to do. Here in Pitești, and we was in 1 or 2 days in Mioveni, but mostly we're focusing on the teams here in Pitești. And of course, Hungary have made it to the semi-final already, and we still have 3 tickets open for those remaining spots. So from Group 1, it's either going to be Portugal, Romania or Sweden taking those 2 tickets, and we have Hungary already qualified, and then between Denmark, Montenegro from that final Group 2. Obviously no surprises, so with Hungary being, I think, is it their 3rd or maybe 4th even title in a row, should they win this. They're the queens of underage handball. Yet to do it at senior level, but no surprise that they've booked their semi-final ticket. But some really, really interesting teams, and I think from what I've seen so far, I really like the look of this Portugal team. They are probably the best defensive team I've seen so far in the tournament, and really sometimes it does look a little bit like women versus girls when they come up against certain teams, and they've been super, super impressive. And some really other big names, of course, we have Julia Scaglione. Of course, she plays for Herning ECAST. She played in the European League last season. She's head and shoulders really above everybody else here. 43 goals so far. And Denmark had that last second win against France. So France really kicking themselves yesterday, up by about 5 goals. And it looked like they were cruising to a victory. And then Denmark came back really late in the game and really won it with the last throw of the game. So that was really exciting stuff in Mioveni yesterday. And today, it's all going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a big day for the teams here in Pitești. Portugal, Romania and Sweden all battling it out there, and some really interesting players in there. Have you seen any of the action at all, Chris?
We're trying to watch a few games as well. And yeah, it seems like a lot of the usual suspects, as you mentioned, Hungary, Denmark are always there as well, like in the top few teams. That's one group. And then the group that you're covering mostly, the Group 1 in the main round there, that seems really interesting though, with Romania, the home side, in with a chance of making the semi-finals. That's not too much of a surprise, but Portugal there, that's been a real surprise package for me. And interesting, you said that it looks like women against girls, that they're so like developed as a team. And that result yesterday, the 38-25 against Switzerland, who themselves, Switzerland have been kind of maybe not a complete surprise, seeing the age of the players who were playing at the EHF EURO back in November, that they're maybe a little bit like the female version of Faroe Islands in that sense, like a bunch of talented young players who were already playing for the senior team. But Portugal really smacked them with 38-25.
Yeah, I mean, that was just it. I mean, that was the quintessential example of it. Looked like they just got completely bullied, and physically Portugal were too much for them. But I mean, their right back, Luciana Rebelo, has been really, really incredible. She's like an early, maybe Anna Gross. She's really tall, great arm on her. Every time she gets the ball, she looks like she's going to score. She's scored 34 goals so far, so she's been Portugal's top star. They celebrated so hard yesterday that she seemed to almost injure herself in the process when everyone piled up on top of her. I wasn't too happy about that afterwards, but hopefully she's all right for it. You spoke there about Switzerland. I mean, Switzerland have been really good to watch. Maybe a little bit naive yesterday in some of the ways they were playing, and kind of kind of seem to run out of ideas maybe a little bit in attack, and their free-flowing handball, which they've had going the whole tournament, just really didn't click yesterday, and they just kind of physically seem to get kind of muscled off the ball a lot of times. And their probably star player so far was Oceana Meyer. She's been really good from centre back. And yeah, you mentioned there the Romanians as well. Maria Lixiandreu has been probably the big star of the Romanian side. When they call her name out before the games, there's a huge roar around the arena. So people really feel like there's a big talent in store there for the future. And when she's not on the court, you really do feel it. She was for the game against Sweden yesterday, and the game before that. Oh geez, I'm on the spot here now, trying to think. They played against Germany. Yes, she wasn't on for the first few minutes, for the first maybe 10 minutes, and you could really feel it. Once she came on, then it was just a massive impact, and she's got an unbelievable jump shot on her. So yeah, some really, really exciting names there for the future of women's handball. So it's great to see them, and great to record also footage of them in these early stages. I think it'll be interesting stuff to watch back in the future.
So based on what you've seen, although it's not 100% certain that Denmark are going through with Hungary, but looks at the moment like they are in the driving seat. Who do you think is going to go to the semi-finals, and who's going to win the medals, in your opinion?
So I think from today's matches in Group 1, we have Switzerland, Romania, Sweden, Portugal. Obviously, I think Romania will do the job there, which would leave them then on 4 points. And I still think Portugal will squeeze it by 1 maybe against Sweden. So I think they should do the bit, or it could be a draw, and that would be enough for them. So I think it's going to be Romania, Portugal from Group 1, and then Group 2. We have Hungary versus Denmark, and France versus Montenegro. I mean, it's difficult to call because Hungary are already through, so it's interesting to see how they're going to approach that game. And yeah, that could be one which Denmark could maybe pick up a win because they'd really need it. And then I think Montenegro should do the business over France. I think France maybe will be a bit deflated after their loss yesterday. So it'll be Hungary, Denmark, I think, from Group 2 for me.
And to win it then?
To win it then, I mean, the easy thing to say Hungary, but I'm going to say Portugal. Just
okay.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm going to throw it out there. It would be huge. And I've only seen one game of Hungary, but it's a little bit like watching Gjør in the women's side. You don't really get excited till you see them at the final weekend because you just know they're going to coast everything. So I'm kind of holding out a little bit on that, but my heart is going to go with Portugal, but my head is maybe saying Hungary.
Okay, well, we'll check in on those predictions for next week's one. So we'll move on to Kolstad, and well, I was going to say the honeymoon period is over, but I don't even think they got married yet. Before the first training of the season,
my God,
the Kolstad have basically told their players that they'd like them to accept a pay cut of 30% for this season and 20% for next season because, as TV2 Norway have understood, they just haven't got the sponsorship income that they expected. I think that was a big thing about a year and a half ago when they announced this whole project and started the rumours coming about the players they were going to get, and talking about how sustainable the whole thing was going to be because they weren't going to focus on just having one big sponsor. They have one big sponsor, I think, which is Rema 1000, the big supermarket chain, which also sponsors the Norwegian League. But it seems like the other sponsors haven't come in yet. The boys who were there winning the Norwegian League last year weren't enough to excite the people with the money in Trondheim anyway. And so Sander Sagerson and the other big boys coming in, Göran Johannesson, Rud coming in as well. So basically the backcourt for the Norwegian national team, having a big old pay cut.
Yeah, that really not the best start to the project, and maybe puts a little bit of a weird tinge on them getting the Champions League spot, especially when it's kind of not only unproven at that level on the handball court, but maybe a little bit unproven as a project as well, maybe going forward. Because I mean, already running into the speed bumps is really not the best. Where do you see this going then? I mean, it's tricky to know.
Yeah, well, thankfully, from Kolstad's point of view, Sanders Augustin said that, he doesn't play the sport for money.
That's nice.
He's happy to take the pay cut, because he's getting a fair bit of money anyway, even with the 30% pay cut. And so the budget for salaries for this year, for the player salaries, is 53 million Norwegian crowns, which is just over 5 million euro. And it's going to be cut by 15 million Norwegian crowns, so 1.5 million. So it's a heavy cut, right? But they've jumped up from basically just under €1 million budget to over €5 million budget in 2 seasons. So it's the whole. I guess it's all relative, right? You're still coming in, there's still a fair bit of money in there, more than has ever been in Norwegian handball, and probably still very good compared to most of Europe. I think when they were putting all this together, it was like, we need to compete with German Bundesliga wages. It's still probably better than most of Europe. And, if they start getting flowing in the Champions League, they're getting, 10,000 people at the big games. Saugerson and the boys are tearing it up. They're not going to win the Champions League this coming season. I think it's safe to say, but they're like a team that could get into the quarterfinal. I think they probably match the Danes in that sense. And maybe if things really go well, then they could sneak into a Final Four, and then they could win it. So maybe, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're probably a quarterfinal team at best next season, at best. But if the big teams come into town, the potential sponsors see those 8, 9, 10,000 people come to the games, and all the Norwegian stars looking strong, then I wouldn't be surprised if the sponsorship money does eventually come. But the fact that if they've gotten the players to agree to that 30% this year, 20% next year, then they've basically secured their future for the next couple of years, because I'm pretty sure the money that is already there will cover that.
Yeah, I mean, they are lucky to a certain extent. Not lucky, I mean, strategically they've gone for pretty much all Norwegian players apart from the 2 Icelanders that they brought in, Smarson and Gudjonsson. And they're lucky that all the Norwegians they brought in and the 2 Icelanders they brought in are all just lovely guys, who aren't going to rock the boat too much. I think could you imagine if they had the likes of Nedem Remily coming in and some of those other characters, they wouldn't take this whole 30% cut. They're like, thank you very much. We're not from Norway. We don't really care about this whole project a whole lot. We're here to play handball and earn money, So I think they are somewhat lucky that someone like Sander Sagerson is such a nice guy. He's proud of Norwegian handball, proud of Norway, and also wants to see this club succeed. So he's okay with kind of maybe there being a few growing pains at the beginning of the project and kind of take that little bit of a cut.
It's a nice thing for the documentary when they eventually win the Champions League, right? They were like, the tough times where we only got €25,000 a month.
God love them.
But I think they'll survive. Still, I'd say it's a little bit embarrassing from their perspective, that they've, before the season's even started, had to ask the players to do that. I'm sure they'll get a fair bit of ribbing in the media and from other teams for the next few months, but I'm sure it'll be quickly forgotten about once the handball starts going, and if things go to plan. Hopefully it's not a sign of negative things to come, but I have a feeling they'll be just fine.
Eventually they should be. I mean, there's lots of money in Norway floating around in oil and everything, so I'm sure they'll find a sponsor somewhere. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, and I'm sure we'll be back with another morning club soon, and then hopefully a full episode once Alex is back from
gets off his arse
and is back from his lovely holiday and has put all the jet lag aside. Until then, talk to you soon, and thanks for joining.